Like I said, Captain Control had to check back because he wanted the Anderson to get closer. It was 17 miles apart. By him checking back the speed, the Anderson closed within 9 to 10 miles. Okay, that's where we're at. Of course, we know that something happened for him to have that much water come aboard that boat when 12 to 14,000 gallons per minute pumps ain't going to take care of it. That is a major hole. I have read reports, and I question this big time. Why the chadburn, the ship's telegraph, was in full ahead. He checked back to let the Anderson catch up. That means that chadburn would be at half speed. It wouldn't be full tilt boogie. No way. The only way that could be full tilt boogie is if when Captain Cooper from the Anderson called him and said, "We just got hit with those three sisters." And you folks just tuning in, that's when the water goes all the way across Lake Superior, it hits the Canadian shoreline and bounces back. Boom, creates waves twice as big as normal. So the only way that could be in full is if he saw what was coming and he hurried up and tried to speed it up. Because like Captain Paquette said, if you're going 17 mile an hour and you got those waves are coming 25 mile an hour, but I'm just saying the faster you go, the less that impact's going to be. But he had slowed back by half, so they really hit it and lifted that up and they transferred the whole thing. There's no way that could have been full speed. And I keep reading it. The Fitzgerald was a weather reporting station to the National Weather Service. The gale warnings were posted at 7 p.m. on November 9th. Remember, they had left earlier in the day from Superior on November 9th. And 6 hours later at 2 a.m., they changed it to storm warnings. Now this is like hurricane winds. You're in a heap of trouble. You get out there and this is major. At November 10th at 7 a.m. in the morning, it made a weather report. But at 2 a.m. in that morning, it had gone to full storm. So they were still able to make a weather report. Come 1 o'clock, they were supposed to make another weather report. Never made it. It did not make it. I think they had their hands full and they weren't going to take the time to round, whatever you have to do to make the report. I'm just going to read this little bit here, okay? People at home, make up your own mind on this. I've read this thing 10 times. And I'm going to say something now that's going to set something up for 2 or 3 videos down the pipe. Who found the Fitzgerald first? Our Navy airplane, I think it was called an Orion 3 or something. It had a magnetometer on it, and they flew over where it should be, and they found what they thought was the wreckage, right? Too bad weather, they can't do nothing until the spring. They get a hold of the Coast Guard gets hold of the Navy and charters out a United States Navy Curve 3 system. It is an unmanned, tethered, submersible, with all kinds of goodies.
First to dive on the Fitzgerald.
Yes. Now this is the same exact one that there was a B-52 that crashed over in the Mediterranean and had 2 atom bombs on it. This exact same unit recovered those 2 atom bombs. That tells me they had to have probably marine Geiger counters in there because wreckage all over the place. How are you going to find them? But if you pick up radiation, you know where they're at, right? Okay, that's as far as I'm going to say that. The first divers that dove on the Fitzgerald, freestyle, Navy divers, okay? Nobody really said much about that pilot house door being open until after that. No, I'm not denigrating those Navy divers. It took gonads the size of Buicks to do something like that, But is it possible that they are the ones that opened that door and went in and looked and got, because I'm telling you, when it's rough like that, the logbook ain't going to sit out and where it can just knock it all over the place. They're going to put it in a desk drawer somewhere. And then next time out, you're ready to put it back in the desk drawer. Very possible could have been in a desk drawer. They might have got that logbook, as well as another piece of equipment that we won't talk about right now, but a very important piece of equipment that was up there. So let me read this here, what they found. This is, to me, it's heavy. The number 1 hatch cover was entirely inside the number 1 hatch and showed indications of buckling from external loading. That means, like if here's the hatch, right, and all the water came, boom, went down inside. That's exact external loading. That's exactly what it means.
So number 1 hatch cover, it's inside the actual hatch.
You're absolutely correct there. Okay.
Cargo, yeah.
The number 2 hatch cover was missing, and the combing on number 2 hatch was fractured and buckled. Hatches number 3 and 4 were covered in mud. However, one corner of the hatch cover number 3 could be seen in place. Meat and potatoes coming up here, folks. Hang on. Hatch cover number 5 was missing. A series of 16 consecutive hatch cover clamps, those are the Kessner clamps, were observed on the number 5 hatch combing. Of this series, the 1st and 8th were distorted or broken. All of the other 14 clamps were undamaged, and in the open position. They were never dogged down. I'm not going to blame the crew for this. The buck stops with the captain. I'm sorry. You were a captain. I was a captain. If we get in trouble, go to a Marine border investigation, buddy. They were warped, and you couldn't dog them down. See? The taconite all rolled forward and caused all this damage. We just read that hatch cover number 1 is inside. Had it been rolled forward, you would have thought it blown it outwards. Just, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
It would have blown it outwards.
It would have blown it like a top.
But it's inside there. So all you can do is keep digging and come up with pieces to the puzzle and put the puzzle together, and maybe someday that puzzle
The pieces will all fit.
will make sense. So I'm not blaming the crew here. If that is the way this happened, then that is deferred maintenance. How else could you say it? Oh, we'll fix that later. We'll fix that up. Just like the prop being on a bounce. We'll take care of that later. Until the Witch of November showed up, and now it's a little late.
If we talk hatches, I think it's important to always say, I don't know what it is now, but back then it was not uncommon for ships to go out in significant seas with not everything battened down. They would make sure the corners were buckled and some in the middle, but every single solitary hatch clamp, ships did go out with hatch clamps undone in seas. I mean, the weight alone of that hatch cover is
About 7 tons.
okay. I mean, you'd think without any hatch clamps on at all, it's not going anywhere based on how heavy it is, but with the sea washing across the deck in rough seas, who knows? But it was not uncommon to be undogged out there in weather.
You've got pictures of the Fitz underway. It's out in the open water, and you can see they're not all clamped. Now, it's a nice sunny day. I can understand that if you're going from point A and you're not going to be gone that long, some things make sense. But man, oh man, had McShirley done his homework and done the weather prognosticating that Captain Paquette did, he would have known. Hey man, I don't know. There's going to be some bad stuff here. But if you could not clamp the hatch, you can't blame the crew for that, because they would have clamped it down, but you couldn't because it was warped. And they said the key here is open. They were in an open position. So is that the only one? Don't forget, if that prop blade, got knocked loose and knocked that access hatch down to the cargo hold, and it's like this, the vents are only this big. I'm still going to say that because of people I talked to that were on that independent dive, that said there was all kind of damage on that doggone thing. But that wasn't the official of Caribou Shoals. That was not the official narrative. And if they were really honest about this thing, they should have called Captain Paquette to testify. They did not call him to testify.
For whatever reason, they didn't want to hear from Captain Paquette.
He had a completely different viewpoint of it, and they weren't about that.
They weren't about to entertain someone else's opinion.
Because it didn't fit the narrative. This is very interesting. We're talking about how they make taconite pellets. Okay, taconite pellets weigh from 127 to 140 pounds per cubic foot, and will absorb approximately 8 to 9 pounds. That's 6 to 7% by weight. Water per cubic foot. Yes, it'll absorb water.
So taconite is very porous.
And it contain up to 27.5 pounds of water in the interstitial void spaces in each cubic foot of pellets. So if you've got between 127 and 140 pounds, now you're adding another 27 pounds to that, a cubic foot. But if we're taking water into the hold, you had to be taking water into the hold. I don't see how you could not be. And there's some people on there and they said, this is BS. What about the crane that knocked a hole in the top of the ballast tank there with the hold? Oh, we'll fix it later. We got to get going. See, well, if you hit it right there, Caribou Shoal, and you're taking all this water in, I don't care how you could run that bilge pump all day long. You ain't going to stay ahead of it, because the tank should be full. You got the air vents, it's letting it out, but it was going right in the doggone cargo hold. Another piece to that. There's so many pieces to this puzzle. It's just unbelievable.
And one of the biggest pieces to this puzzle is gone because it's missing. That would be the center section of the ship itself, which is nothing more than a debris field. I thought this was interesting. What's left of the bow is about 276 feet long. What's left of the stern is about 253 feet long. The sections that are there, bow and stern, adds up to 529 feet. It was 729 feet long altogether, so there's 200 feet missing in the center, which probably holds the most clues, but we can't, outside of studying the debris field, I don't know what you can get from it. It's gone.
Fred Shannon said on his dive, and I always felt bad for him because what he said didn't fit the narrative either. He said that the bow section and the stern section are farther apart than what the Coast Guard said. Now, whether that means by 100 feet or 200 feet, I don't know. But don't forget, they're using Loran C back in 1976. Now we got GPS, which is pretty doggone within 9 feet, and the military is within 2 feet. So I think I would go with the GPS over the other, to be honest with you. And he's the first one to say that the bow is in American waters and the stern is in Canadian. It was right on the line, but the bow is in American waters. Until we get out there ourselves, how do we know?
I don't see that happening.
I wouldn't say never on that
Well,
one. I wouldn't
never say
never say never. Seriously, the tide is turning on a lot of things in this country because so many things have been. Well, how can you trust after the last 4 years? How can you trust anything the government says? The difference between a conspiracy theory and fact is about 6 months anymore.
Never thought of it like that.
Seriously, all this. Oh man. And that's why they hate Trump so much, because he's digging some stuff up that they don't want dug up. So I'm just saying, I think the tide is turning on a lot of things as far as this country wants to have some truth here. I know some secrets you got to classified stuff you got to keep classified. I understand that. But as we alluded to it in how they found the Titanic, Dr. Robert Ballard was looking for 2 lost nuclear submarines. And how did he find them? An underwater Geiger counter, because he had 2 weeks left to go find the Titanic. We'll follow the debris field, and that is exactly how he found it. But he had been under contract, top secret stuff for the United States Navy. Nobody ever knew that for years. So you can't always believe what you're being told by the powers that be, and that's why having a discerned mind, and I have an inquiring mind. I look at both sides of the coin, and I'm going to make up my decision. But I'm telling you, the souls of them guys reach out to me. I'm a very spiritual person. Maybe it's just my uncle, I would think they would want, oh, leave them alone. No. It says in the Bible to be absent from the body is in the presence of the Lord. Their souls are in heaven. The bodies may be down there. I agree. Have Robert Ballard or somebody do a forensic dive on this thing. And then I read this thing. Here's another thing. The Titanic's been under the water since 1912. Salt water is very corrosive. You can see pictures of ships in the Great Lakes that sank 100 years ago. Other than the zebra mussels that's on them, they look like the day they sank.
They're clean.
And they're trying to tell us, the Fitzgerald's collapsing in on itself. Why? There's nothing to see here. Nah, there's definitely something to see there. They don't want us to see it.
They don't want you to see it. Could they dive on the Edmund Fitzgerald and not disturb the remains? Could it be done respectfully? I don't know what the right word is there.
Nobody wants to disturb any bodies. You don't have to disturb the bodies. You're not going to go those staterooms. Listen, the only staterooms that would possibly be available to get to is in the bow, and those are mini mausoleums, if you will, if the guys are in their staterooms. My dad told me on the stern when that flipped out the big engine, right, all that heavy duty stuff, when it went upside down, it just crashed through all them decks, and anybody that was in the way was flattened like a doggone pancake. So you ain't gonna get back there. Now you look at the stern and you can see the windows and that's the officer's mess, part of the galley. Could you get in there maybe 10, 15 feet? I don't know. What are you gonna learn in there? I don't know that yet. But I would love to see that logbook, unless those Navy guys ain't telling the truth and they took that logbook along with another interesting piece of equipment.
In terms of when the Edmund Fitzgerald broke, in my view, in my mind, there are 3 possible scenarios.